Song.
I love a lot of them. I don't think I have a favorite Afrobeat song right now. I cannot pick.
I can't pop.
Living in Bondage.
It has to be between Blood Sisters and Lionhearts.
I don't have favorite anything. I have favorite food. I have favorite colors. I barely have favorite any other thing.
Oh my God. Living in Bondage. The first one. I'm not a child.
Right now, it gets a love story.
Okay, my favorite Nigerian dish would be
Panga stew with rice.
Come on now. Okwa.
Pounded yam and legusi soup.
Beans and plantain.
Is oha soup. Fufu and oha soup. Thank you.
Bread and akara.
bitter leaf soup with catfish and snail and fufu. Proper Santana. Apple.
Nnekedu keke ime. Idi sure na ede mma. Idi kwoi. Ilalo ofuma tata. Iteta iligo kwenni. Iman ndi gị n'afọ. You ike mee things. You understand? Okay.
A fun-filled and restful weekend. Good morning and welcome to today's edition of Rapid TV's continuously evolving socio-political and general interest show we call KORERO. Of course, I'm your regular host, Nkamiang John, the beloved, and it promises to be, as always, an incisive edition of the show. This is Rapid TV's continuously evolving socio-political and general interest show we call KORERO. The show, as always, is live and interactive on all our social media platforms, and you can be part of the conversation simply by following and liking, and most importantly, subscribing to Rapid TV on YouTube and, of course, on all other social media handles. We are at Official Rapid TV. That's our handle, at Official Rapid TV, and it gives you the opportunity to become part of our growing online community, and you get to contribute and interact with every facet of our programming right here on Rapid TV. You can also take advantage of our WhatsApp portal if that is the platform of choice for you to engage in our varied conversations. And the number right there on the screen, 0916-771-6035. 0916-771-6035. On today's edition of the show, we will be bringing you up to speed with latest developments in that of stories that have made the rounds in the last 24-48 hours. Major stories, for that matter, that have continued to trend in over a week. Now, especially as our searchlight shifts back to developments in Rivers State. So we start with the sexual harassment allegations by Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan, where the International Criminal Court, ICC, has reportedly placed Nigerian Senate President Godswill Akpabio on an international sanctions list, ordering his immediate arrest if cited in any country. A formal letter has been sent to the Nigerian government calling on President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to take action. Now, the warrant follows allegations by a female senator who accused Akpabio of sexual harassment and forced kissing. Now, she claims to have video evidence to support her claims, which the ICC has confirmed that they have viewed in full before issuing the arrest order. In a related development, Amnesty International has called for an independent, thorough investigation into the allegation raised against President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, by the Kogi Central Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan. Now, this was disclosed on their verified X handle by the Director of Amnesty International Nigeria, Isa Sanusi. Now, the human rights watchdog said the weight and scale of the sexual harassment allegations were one more pressing reason for establishing an independent, resourceful, and impartial investigation. Now, Amnesty International asserted that the National Assembly must not continue to look away while the allegations remain and are being trivialized, unaddressed, and ignored. So, that's the latest as far as the Natasha Akpabio drama is concerned. But let's move ahead to the most developing story, because almost on a passing day, something new is happening as far as Rivers State is concerned. Well, 5 days after the declaration of a state of emergency in Rivers State following a major explosion that occurred on the Trans-Niger pipeline in Bodo, Gokana local government area of Rivers State, another explosion reportedly struck the Soku oil facility in Akuku Toru, local government area of the state. Now, this was confirmed by the Youth and Environmental Advocacy Center, YAC, Nigeria, a grassroots non-governmental organization with strong networks across the Niger Delta. Well, in a statement signed by its executive director, Dr. Fineface, YAC said it received reports from its youth volunteers about an early morning explosion at the Soku oil facility operated by Nigerian Liquefied Natural Gas NLNG Limited. Now, the cause of the explosion remains uncertain, with speculations ranging from equipment failure, sabotage, and maybe even deliberate attack. Now, this marks the third explosion at oil facilities in Rivers State in less than 1 week. Now, the first occurred in Ogoni, where the second was in Oga Egbema Ndoni local government area of Rivers State, an incident referred by President Bola Tinubu in his March 18 nationwide broadcast while declaring a 6-month state of emergency in Rivers State. Following these incidents, the president suspended the Rivers State House of Assembly, Deputy Governor, and Governor Similaye Fubara, citing his alleged failure to protect oil infrastructure. Now, the decision followed threats by some youths in a viral video warning against Governor Fubara's impeachment. YAC Nigeria has called for an urgent investigation into the Soko explosion. The group urged the National Oil Spill Detection and Response Agency to conduct a joint investigation visit to determine the cause. Of course, in the latest reports this morning, Fubara has come out to clearly state that he has no connection with militants in the Niger Delta, and that allegations of him not protecting oil pipelines are fallible. Anyway, the suspended Rivers State Governor, Similaye Fubara, re-emerged in the public eye on Sunday, attending a special prayer, worship, and Thanksgiving service at the Salvation Ministry's headquarters in the government reservation area, GRA of Port Harcourt. Now, this appearance comes 5 days after the President Bola Tinubu declared a state of emergency in Rivers State and suspended Fubara from office. Amid speculations and rumors about his possible relocation to another South-South state, Fubara's presence at the religious gathering dispelled such claims, demonstrating his continued presence within the state despite the ongoing political turmoil. Now, during the service, the embattled governor expressed heartfelt gratitude to God, acknowledging divine mercy, guidance, and unwavering support throughout the unfolding crisis. Addressing the congregation, he spoke of the strength he had drawn from his faith during these challenging times. Now, the event drew a significant gathering of political figures, elders, and stakeholders from Rivers State who came to show their solidarity and support for Fubara. The prayer service with the team living a blessed life inspired by Genesis chapter 1, verse 28. The service was led by Pastor David Ibiyome, The gathering featured passionate prayers, soul-lifting worship, and spiritual teachings focused on promoting peace, progress, and prosperity within Rivers State. A special prayer session dedicated to Governor Fubara was also held, strengthening his faith in divine justice as the political crisis continues to unfold. Meanwhile, some political actors in the state have continued to react to developments, one of which is when the list of dignitaries that showed up at the Sunday service to show solidarity with the suspended governor, certain political actors reacted. One of them, my very good friend and brother, and member of the National Assembly, one-time member of the National Assembly in the person of Magnus Abe, he had a few things to say about those currently surrounding the suspended governor. Let's hear from him.
Nobody is with Governor Fubara because they love Rivers State or because they love Governor Fubara. They are with Governor Fubara because they see him as a tool to achieve their own political objective. Why do I say that? In the last elections, everybody in Rivers State did anti-party. Your Excellency, with all due respect, I did anti-party. I did not allow the SDP candidate to come here to campaign. And when he came to my house, I told him that I was with Tinubu. Okay, you too, you did anti-party. You were very clear that you were with Tinubu. You did not support the PDP presidential candidate. The present governor also did anti-party. He was with you. He did not support the presidential candidate of the PDP. The PDP leaders that are with Fubara today did anti-party. They did not support the PDP governorship candidate who was Governor Fubara at that time.
Well, there you had it from Magnus Abe. It's not everybody that seems to be around Governor Fubara that truly likes Governor Fubara. Like in the words of Magnus Abe, they are seeing him as a political tool. Anyway, moving ahead, former President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan has stated that failure to ensure justice and fairness in decision-making endangers the nation's stability and future prosperity. Now, former President Goodluck Jonathan gave the warning while sharing his thoughts on the state of emergency declared in Rivers State. He argued that no country can succeed or when government officials abuse power and act as dictators. Now, he argued that the crisis in Rivers State reflects a wider governance challenge within the country, not just within Rivers State, where key executive, legislature, and judiciary figures fail to uphold justice and the rule of law. Jonathan delivered his remarks on Saturday at the annual colloquium of the Haske Satumari Foundation in Abuja, an event aimed at amplifying marginalized voices and promoting equitable governance. Now, the former president expressed concern that compromised institutions deter investment and impede economic growth, as investors are wary of environments where judicial rulings may be influenced. Let's hear from former President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan.
We're talking about building a society where no one is oppressed, as reflected in the top paragraph of our national anthem. As a former president and also from the Niger Delta, when the issue of suspending the governor came up, I think people called on me, oh, President Jonathan, oh, President Obasanjo, you should say something. People expected us to say something about what is happening. And of course, people don't even know that traditionally all over the world, former presidents hardly make statements about what the current presidents are doing because of the tension it could create in the country. In most cases, look at America, look at everywhere. So hardly for former presidents to make sometimes you see and you look. And of course, what is happening in Nigeria today regarding the situation in Rivers State is like an Indian proverb that said that if somebody is sleeping, really sleeping, you can easily wake up that person. But if the person is pretending to sleep, you find it difficult to wake up that person. The key actors in Nigeria, from executive to the legislature, luckily Senator Binta and others are here, and the judiciary, they know the correct thing to do, but they are refusing to do it. They are pretending to sleep. And waking such a person is extremely difficult because the person knows the right thing. A clear abuse of offices, clear abuse of power, clear abuse of privileges, cutting across from the three arms of government, from the executive through the parliament through the judiciary. And I always plead with our people that whatever we do affects everybody. And sometimes we do things and we think that it doesn't affect us. I've been a president before, and even after leaving office as a former president, people get to me. Why is that our passport is not valued that much? Why is that Nigerians are not given the kind of treatment we're supposed to receive at the international airports? Sometimes we think it's because of Yahoo boys or 419ers. No, not only them. Yes, they are part of the problem. But whatever happens in a country, decisions that are taken by the executive arm of government, decisions that are taken by the parliament, judicial decisions affect everybody. For example, no businessman can bring his money to invest in a country where the judiciary is compromised, where a government functionary can dictate to judges what judgment they will give. No man brings his money to invest in that economy because we are taking a big risk. So whatever we do affects everybody. And if we must build a nation for our children and our grandchildren, no matter how painful it is, we must strive to do what is right. It may cost us, but we must endeavor and pay the price to insist on doing what is right. Whether you're holding an executive office as a president, a minister,
President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, former president, I must emphasize, of course, adding his voice to the growing conversations with regards to developments in Rivers State, especially after President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, declared a state of emergency, suspended every structure of democracy in the state, even though the sole administrator has reached out to the local government. We hear that salaries are going to be paid to the local government, though Mr. President also said, apart from the judiciary, the State House of Assembly, the governor, deputy governor, every other structure with regards to democracy is on suspension for the next 6 months. Of course, there's been a whole back and forth in terms of legal interpretations to Section 305 of the Constitution, which recently I listened to a learned colleague where he said, in his words, that Section 305 is just a list or an itinerary of how a state of emergency should be called. It does not necessarily empower the president to declare a state of emergency. And let's not forget, in the closing stages of last week, the drama that ensued at the National Assembly, both in the lower and upper legislative chamber, where Mr. President got a nod from the legislature, even though due process, quote and unquote, was not followed. Certain senators have continued to react over the weekend. Former governor of Kebbi State and the former speaker of the House of House of Representatives, Aminu Tambowa, one of them, and of course, former governor of Bayelsa State, Seriake Dixon, and a host of others. Even Senator Kingibe has also reacted. Yes, the statement was all over the media over the weekend, as they voiced out the fact that due process was not followed in the National Assembly, both in the upper and lower legislative chamber, to, of course, give the nod to Mr. President's declaration of a state of emergency in Rivers State. On top of that, there were stories that it was dollar rain for some senators and honorable members. Some have come out to deny that no such thing happened. Shortly before I came into the studio, I think I saw a story suggesting that even the Senate president has denied that there was no dollar rain as a result of the National Assembly saying yes to Mr. President's proclamation of a state of emergency in Rivers State. So there's still a lot that's happening. If you followed both the online blogs and newspapers over the weekend, varied editorials, columns with regards to the state of emergency in Rivers State. So one begins to wonder. And the surprising thing is that while we may be so locked in with what is happening in the country, we forget that the rest of the world is also watching. You know, if I might borrow the words of our elders, when you're pointing one finger, you must remember that the other four are pointing back at you. Some interesting headlines in the international media with regards to developments in Nigeria, particularly in the National Assembly. And I think we need to begin to take some caution with regards to how we are presenting ourselves as a people and as a nation to the international community. Anyway, let's make progress. Talking about reactions to the declaration of a state of emergency in Rivers State, Nobel laureate Wole Soyinka criticized the state of emergency declaration, arguing that it contradicts the principles of federalism enshrined in Nigeria's constitution. Now, in an interview with the African Report, Soyinka contended that the manner in which the declaration was implemented raises serious constitutional concerns. He pointed out that the 1999 Constitution vests excessive powers in the presidency, an issue he believes requires urgent national discourse. Now, for Soyinka, the decision reflects a broader challenge of centralized authority, which he sees as a fundamental flaw in Nigeria's governance structure. He called for a national conversation to reassess the balance of power between the federal and state governments. Of course, more reactions have continued to trail. We hear that the convener of the Bring Back Our Girls movement, Aisha Yusuf, and other prominent human rights activists also demanded the reversal of the emergency rule. They called for the reinstatement of Fubara and Odu, his deputy, describing the president's action as illegal and a violation of the Constitution. Addressing a press conference in Abuja on Saturday, the prominent activists under the aegis of the citizens and civil society organizations condemned the approval of the emergency rule by the National Assembly, saying they failed the people. Big question. Aisha Yusuf, who addressed the media, expressed regret, warning that if the majority of Nigerians allowed the president and the National Assembly to get away with the emergency rule, it will set a bad precedent. The executive director of Fixed Politics, Anthony Ubani, who also spoke on behalf of 300 other coalitions, condemned the state of emergency. According to him, it was not the idea of democracy every true Nigerian had dreamt about. Ubani also vowed that there would be a series of litigations against the president's actions in the coming days. Similarly, the national spokesperson for the Youth Rights Campaign and representative of End Bad Governance protests, Hassan Taiwo, strongly criticized President Tinubu's emergency rule, describing it as an attack on democracy. Also, the executive director of the Civil Society Legislative Advocacy Center, Awal Musa, expressed concern over the emergency rule, reaffirming the organization's commitment to defending the constitutional right to peaceful protest. Also, the Democratic Socialist Movement expressed support for a mass action against the emergency rule. The National Secretary of the DSM, Beluola Adewale, called on the Nigerian Labour Congress and Trade Union Congress to lead the protest against sabotaging democratic rights of the people of Rivers State. A rights group, Take It Back Movement, said it planned to stage a nationwide protest on April 7th against the emergency rule in Rivers State. The national coordinator of the group, Sanwo-Olu Juwon, who disclosed this to the Punch newspapers, accused Tinubu's administration of steering Nigeria towards authoritarianism and authoritarian rule. Now, he noted that the president's action in Rivers State, including the suspension of elected officials, was laying the foundation for military dictatorship. So, varied reactions, of course, and more reactions are coming in, trooping in by the day. There have been various calls from different quarters to try to push home the demand for Mr. President to recall the emergency declaration. Now, prominent Nigerian actor, lawyer, and politician Kenneth Okonkwo condemned President Tinubu's declaration of a state of emergency in Rivers State, which he claims is unlawful and removes, he said, is unlawful and unlawfully removed the elective governor and House of Assembly members from office for 6 months. According to Okonkwo, who asserted that the removal of the elected officials is not only illegal, but unconstitutional, arguing that a state of emergency should not involve the removal of elected representatives. Let's hear from Kenneth Okonkwo.
Which law has given Tinubu the rights to appoint a friend of his, or a stooge of his, or a loyalist of his, and overthrow the elected representative of Rivers people and use such people to govern Rivers State? So what happened in Rivers State is a coup, and Nigerians must rise against this. The president of South Korea, like I said, was removed and is facing trial for declaring a martial law upon the country. So Tinubu ought to be removed and ought to be facing trial for treason. This is the treason we're talking about, not arresting children who do not know anything about removing a government and saying you want to try them for treason. This is the actual treason, and this is what should happen. Elected people should be very careful what they do, because power is not forever. One day they will account for all the things they are doing. So what happened in Rivers State is a coup, and should be regarded as that. It's not a declaration of state of emergency. It's a declaration of martial law, whereby you remove elected representatives by force of arms, and then you install a leader, which is a sole administrator outside the democratic norms.
Prominent Nigerian actor, lawyer, and politician Kenneth Okonkwo's call to action, urging all democratic forces in Nigeria to rise against what he perceives as an undemocratic and illegal act. Meanwhile, responding to these criticisms, the senior special assistant to the president on media and publicity, Temitope Ajayi, acknowledged the statue of both former President Goodluck Jonathan and, of course, Nobel laureate Wole Soyinka, but emphasized that their opinions remained personal perspectives. Yes, Ajayi defended Tinubu's decision, citing Section 305 of the Nigerian Constitution, which grants the president the authority to declare a state of emergency when necessary. He argued that the president was acting within his constitutional mandate to safeguard national stability. He further justified the president's action, asserting that President Tinubu is responsible for maintaining the country's unity and ensuring that no part of Nigeria descends into disorder. While the controversy surrounding the state of emergency in Rivers State continues to unfold, the debate highlights deeper constitutional and governance issues that may require further legislative and judicial scrutiny. But the question is, do we have the right National Assembly to be able to have that conversation? Now, your guess is as good as mine. All right. Meanwhile, the Social Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, has filed a lawsuit against President Bola Tinubu over what he described as the unlawful suspension of the democratically elected governor, deputy governor, and members of the House of Assembly of Rivers State. Now, the suit challenges the legality of the suspension, which were imposed alongside the president's proclamation of a state of emergency in the state. Now, the lawsuit was filed by Yira Bari, Israel, Nulog, Nengim Ikpomowi Royal, and Gracious Ayo, all members of SERAP. Volunteer Lawyers Network, SVLN, in River State. The plaintiffs, who are registered voters, argue that their democratic rights have been violated. Joined as defendants in the case are the Attorney General of the Federation and the Minister of Justice, Lateef Fagbemi, SAN, and the Vice Admiral Ibiok Ete Ibas, retired, who was appointed as the sole administrator of the state. The suit filed at the Federal High Court in Abuja seeks an order to set aside both the suspension of the elected officials and the appointment of Ibas as the state's administrator. The plaintiffs argue that the Nigerian Constitution prohibits any individual or group from assuming control of the government outside the provision of the law. Now, they contend that the suspending of elected officials under a state of emergency is unconstitutional and undermines the principles of democracy and, of course, the rule of law. SERAP's legal team, led by Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Ebonluwa Adegborua, stated that democracy is built on respect for human rights and, of course, due process. The suit references several constitutional provisions, including Section 1, Subsection 2 of the 1999 Constitution as amended, which states that no part of Nigeria shall be governed outside the framework of the Constitution. The lawsuit also highlights Nigeria's obligation under the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, emphasizing that political participation is a fundamental right that cannot be aberrated or arbitrarily suspended. Now, the plaintiffs are seeking several court declarations, which include, and I quote, 1, that there is no constitutional provision allowing the president to suspend elected officials while declaring a state of emergency. 2, suspending the governor, deputy governor, and lawmakers of the River State violates constitutional principle. And 3, that the appointment of a sole administrator for the state is unconstitutional and should be nullified. 4, that the suspended officials be reinstated immediately. And 5, that the federal government be restrained from enforcing the suspension or recognizing the sole administrator. Now, legal experts and political analysts alike are closely watching the case, and as I have said, there will be a litany of litigations going forward, as it could set a significant precedent for the balance of power between the federal government and the state administrations in Nigeria. No date has been set for the hearing of the case. Now, I must say that even reports suggest that the PDP governors are also heading to the Supreme Court in a bid to also file suits against the federal government and particularly the presidency because of the state of emergency declared in Rivers State. So, as I said, this edition of the show is to bring you up to speed, and not just bring you up to speed, but to prepare you for will I say the tsunami that is coming, political tsunami, judicial tsunamis, because we're going to see all kinds of litigations with regards to the fallout of what has happened in Rivers State with regards to the state of emergency. Anyway, I'm supposed to be joined by the president of the Nigerian Youth Organization, NYO, in the person of Comrade Duke Lamboye. He is currently in Port Harcourt, the Rivers State capital. He's supposed to give us latest update and the position, being the president of the Nigerian Youth Organization, where the youths in Rivers State stand in all of this. But we're still trying to make that connection so that we can quickly have that conversation. Being our man on the ground, so to say, it would be fantastic to know what the situation is in Rivers State as we speak. But while we're waiting to make that conversation, let's also, I know much earlier Cynthia and Ugo took you through the papers, but let's look at the front pages of the newspapers again. If you're not fond of following the papers, I think you should be this period with all that's happening within the Nigerian polity, especially after the state of emergency that has been declared in Rivers State. Well, we start with The Guardian, and you can see concerns over constitutionality of suspension of returned office holders in Rivers. I don't think there is any front newspaper that you will not see something or anything about Rivers State. And of course, you can see Bakari Ekwesili prefer solutions to Nigeria's leadership crisis. I mean, these are, everybody's talking about the political leaders, especially after the drama that ensued in the National Assembly last week, Friday, going into the weekend. And of course, Obasanjo decries Onya Dam neglect, insisting borehole drillings. Of course, the president is calling for attention to the Onya Dam and the fact that he suggests that borehole drilling may be more of a menace than actually solving the issue of lack of access to pipe-borne water. So that's The Guardian. That's The Guardian. Let's get to see the next front page. And The Punch, one of my favorites. Okay, The Punch decides to lead with marketers fear price hike as FG suspends sale to Dangote. Now, don't forget, I remember reading on one of the social media platforms where somebody said, look, there's so much focus on Rivers State, there's so much focus on the emergency rule that even the media is forgetting to report other developments that may even have more significant effect on the polity. And one of them is the fact that as of last week, Dangote was no longer selling petrol to the country. And we may just be in for some turbulence in the energy sector, particularly with regards to PMS, Premium Motor Spirit, as the case may be. And now you can see on the front page of The Punch, marketers fear price hike as FG suspends sale to Dangote. And you can see the rider, Hypeman slams depot owners for stockpiling products. FG Dangote resume talks today. So let's keep our fingers crossed with the hope that some solution will come out from those talks. And then right there at the top, you can see South governors, National Assembly plan to reconcile Fubara lawmakers. Now that sounds like a positive step in the positive direction, or a positive step in the right direction. South governors, National Assembly plan to reconcile Fubara lawmakers. I did say earlier that there would be hardly any front page, any newspapers, front page of any newspaper that you will not see something or anything about what's happening in Rivers State and particularly South Nigeria. And at the top, you can see Atiku Obi camps tackle Bode George, Shakaru over anti-coalition comments. So that's the punch. That's the punch, and very interesting. developments as far as the Punch is concerned. Let's see the next paper. Vanguard. Another explosion rocks gas facility in Rivers State. Of course, we brought you that story much earlier, and of course, emphasis on page 8, page 9, page 10. So if you want to get the details of that explosion, I think you should grab yourself a copy of the Vanguard. And then you can see the picture of Governor Similaye Fubara, his first appearance in public since March 8, when President Tinubu declared a state of emergency, suspending him and his deputy and, of course, the State House of Assembly for 6 months. And then slightly below Governor Fubara's picture, you can see inflation. Manufacturers record 90.6% rise in cost, almost 100%. Rise in cost. Manufacturers record 90.6% rise in cost. And then state of the nation. I don't know when we will have peace again. And that is coming from an elder statesman. And so everybody's talking about the state of the nation. And of course, there are suggestions that elder statesmen, political stakeholders, politicians are set to meet all in a bid to see how they can prefer solutions to the ongoing development as far as Rivers State is concerned. Let's see one or two more papers before we call it a wrap on this part of the show. This is the Daily Trust, and you can see no quorum in Senate. Tambowa orders. I did tell you earlier that some senators and honorable members did say that the session we saw last week Friday in both the upper and lower legislative chamber did not go by the rules. It didn't go by the book. It wasn't done by the book. And so you hear on the front page of the Daily Trust, no quorum in Senate. Tambowa others. And underneath you see Jonathan Shoyinka Wobara, fault proclamation, Serap sues president, action taken to avert chaos, presidency. So it's a back and forth as far as the presidency. I think I'll be right to say that the presidency is always on the defense, At no point in time have we ever seen the presidency come out to take absolute responsibility for any action taken. They're always in the defensive, Once the opposition or Nigerians make any statement, they just release the attack dogs. There is no deliberacy to give clarity to any issue. It's like the presidency has become infallible, but we know they are humans, and as long as they are humans, they're not perfect, and of course, definitely not infallible. So those are that's what the front pages of most of the national dailies are looking at. So if you're one of those people that don't necessarily read the dailies, in the coming days, I would suggest that you keep yourself abreast. I know the feelers from the streets, most Nigerians are already tired with all the drama as far as the political class is concerned. But we cannot overlook the fact that these are the people who make the decisions that affect our everyday lives. So there is a need. We complain of our green passports, and sometimes, if not most times, their actions also contribute to how our green passport is either respected or not respected, or not even recognized amongst the Committee of Nations. Sad, right? But we need to begin to have certain conversations. And I think that's the advocacy across board, that there is need for us to come together as a people and begin to have certain conversations, because we seem to be deviating from the moral compass that suggests that we should, in the words of one of my former bosses, Ben Murray Bruce, former senator, it's just common sense, common sense, All right, so To wrap up today's edition of Rapid TV's continuously evolving social, political, and general interest show, KORERO, sadly, we couldn't make that connection with Comrade Lamboye Duke, the president of the Nigerian Youth Organization. We really wanted to know what's going on, especially in the build-up to the youth confab that Mr. President has promised to hold. Because with all of this development, we know that the Niger Delta has a large cross-section of young people that form the demography as far as young Nigerians are concerned. And it would be great to feel the pulse of these young people under the current circumstance. Anyway, Nigerian governors under the aegis of the Nigerian Governors Forum, NGF, last week declined to comment on recent political developments in the country, saying their hands are tied. Now, I found this particularly interesting, where governors, chief security officers of their state, influential political players on the political chessboard say that their hands are tied. I mean, that statement carries a lot of weight and it suggests a number of things. Anyway, coming less than 4 days after President Bola Tinubu's declared state of emergency in Rivers State and suspended Governor Similaye Fubara and the members of the State House of Assembly, a member of the NGF, Director General of the NGF, Dr. Abdul Latif Shitu, in a statement insisted that the NGF, the Nigerian Governors Forum, would not take a position on the issue so as not to affect members' interests. Okay, so I'm trying to draw the line here. Is it about the interest of the members or the interest of the states that those members govern? I'm hoping I will be able to talk with Dr. Shitu to get clarification on that, because when you say interest of members, well, anyway, Shitu also clarified that the Nigerian Governors Forum was an umbrella body for subnational governments to promote unified policy positions and collaborate with relevant stakeholders in pursuit of sustainable socio-economic growth and the well-being of the populace. Big grammar, right? But we understand. As I said, the coming days offers a lot of drama and maybe even a tsunami of litigations. We hear that the PDP governors are heading to the Supreme Court. Already, Serap has sued Mr. President and other legal litigations that are already in play. So, don't mind me. Like I always say, I pride myself to be a student of the law. So it promises to be interesting to see how these varied litigations pan out. Over the weekend, I came across a quote that said, in the past, the thought was that the judiciary was the last hope of the common man. But with all that has happened, right from the Supreme Court judgment that many say is what threw Rivers State into the turmoil that we have founded, that the judiciary no longer is the hope of the common man. The common man has now been left to look to the skies and trust God for miracles to happen. Anyway, that sums it up for today's edition of Rapid TV's continuously evolving social, political, and general interest show, KORERO. My special thanks to you, as always, for allowing us be a part of your morning, the start of your week. Trust us to keep you up to speed with developments as they evolve. As you know, we've got our ears to the ground and our searchlight beamed on developments across Nigeria and even across the world, so that we can bring those issues as they unravel to the front burner, so that we can have a conversation. Don't forget, we are live and interactive on all our social media platforms, and we are streaming live on our website, www.rbnradiotv.com. And of course, don't forget to send in your views, comments, reactions to developments as we have laid them bare on KORERO and every other show right here on Rapid TV. So, till we come your way with another incisive edition of Rapid TV's continuously evolving social, political, and general interest show, KORERO, I am Nkamian John, the Beloved. Bye for now.